welcome back to Classic Guitar Rock. I'm Jeremy. Take just a minute right now and click on that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Click the like button and click the notification bell so you get all the latest updates. Today, we're talking about the top 5 albums featuring Graham Bonnet. For my money, Graham Bonnet is in the top 5 of all time singers. People think I'm crazy because he's obviously not as well known as Dio or Rob Halford or Robert Plant or Sammy Hagar or any of the great singers out there, Robin Zander. But he's an excellent singer. And he has suffered from never being in a band long enough for it to really get big because he's got the pipes and the talent to do it. It just never happened. Over the course of his career, he's played with Ritchie Blackmore, Michael Schenker, Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Chris Impellitteri. I mean, it's like the who's who of guitar players that this guy has played with to great effect. And what's funny is he's kind of an accidental rock guy because his background was totally R&B and kind of mellow stuff until Ritchie Blackmore found him. His career starts way back in the late 60s with a group called the Marbles, which was produced by, I believe, Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees was involved with this. I don't know the whole backstory, but there's a connection there with the Bee Gees. And they had one big hit in 1969 as the Marbles called Only One Woman. Not much else, you know, of notoriety happened. He was in a movie at one point. You know, if you see the guy, he doesn't look like a rock star. He looks like James Dean. He's got short hair, wears, you know, aviator glasses. Definitely not the typical rock star look, but man, the guy's got pipes. Anyways, I talk about him in another video. Check that out. And by the way, Graham Bonnet still performs. He's in his 70s now and still sounds really good. He's got a reformed version of Alcatraz that's touring now, and they've released some singles over the last few months, and they sound pretty good. It's good stuff, so I'm looking forward to hearing more of that. But let's start with our countdown. Coming in at number 5 is Graham's solo album. Came out in 1981. It's called Line Up. And it features, oh man, there's a huge cross-section of people involved with this album. It's got John Lord of Deep Purple playing on some tracks. It's got Mickey Moody, who was in Whitesnake, playing guitar on much of it. Russ Ballard, obviously the songwriter Russ Ballard, also plays guitar on some of this. So this is just, Cozy Powell plays drums. It's kind of a who's who of musicians in England at the time. It's a solid album. It's not hard rock. It's not heavy rock. It's rock, but it's not, you know, of the Alcatraz vein or not quite even the Rainbow vein, but pretty rocking with some tasty tunes and tasty guitar playing. Definitely worth checking out. Again, that's called Line Up from 1981. Coming in at number 4 on my list is his only album he did with Rainbow. And this is the Down to Earth album. This is really where Graham's rock credentials start. The story goes that Ritchie Blackmore had heard the Marbles way back in the 60s, 69 when that came out. And he'd always even told other people, I love the way that guy in the Marbles sings. Whatever happened to him? Where's he at? Whatever. And when time came for Ronnie Dio to move on from Rainbow, Ritchie said, let's find the Marbles guy. And so they bring the Marbles guy in, right? They track down Graham Bonnet, bring him in, and he auditions, and he says he sang the song Mistreated, and says he didn't even use a microphone. He just was belting it out, and he got the gig. And Graham Bonnet said he wasn't even familiar with Rainbow. He wasn't into rock. He wasn't familiar with the rock scene at all. Here he is with his short hair, you know, and wearing a Hawaiian shirt, or I don't know what he was wearing, but he definitely did not look the rock and roll part. And they put out this album, Down to Earth. I gotta believe that Rainbow fans were like, huh? Because they went from Dio singing about castles and dragons and stuff to this guy who looked like James Dean, you know. Obviously vocal chops, sounds great, and there's some great tunes on the album, but this is the album where people, Rainbow fans, are like, they really went commercial on that. Since You've Been Gone was the hit off of the album. All Night Long, another classic rock hit. Eyes of the World. So there's some good stuff on there, and Graham's singing is phenomenal. As a Rainbow album, it's not one of their best, but I don't think that's Graham's fault. He was new to the band, and it's funny if you catch old footage of him with Rainbow. He was only with them for like one tour. He did the big Monsters of Rock or Castle Donington concert, and there's footage of that out there. He does a very respectable job singing Stargazer and Man on the Silver Mountain. He can sing the Dio songs. It just looks funny seeing a guy in, you know, red polyester and silk shirts up there singing Dio tunes, but he pulled it off. But coming in at number 4 is Down to Earth. Coming in at number 3 is another vehicle for a new artist, this time a Swedish kid, 18-year-old Yngwie J. Malmsteen. They get put together by the record company, and they said, hey, Graham, why don't you make an album in kind of in the vein of Rainbow? You know, Rainbow was pretty popular. The kids like that. Let's see what we can do here. And the idea was that this album would kind of be Graham's band, and he'd have this supporting band. Well, Yngwie's not known for supporting anyone. You know, it's kind of the Yngwie show. So that partnership didn't last too long. But while they were together, man, this is one of the most bombastic albums. And what I mean by bombastic is they're both completely over the top. I mean, Yngwie's playing. This was the introduction of Yngwie to the masses. He's crazy in a cool way, right? This was before we realized, okay, this is all this guy's going to do for the next 50 years, right? But the first time we heard it, it was like, holy cow, where is this guy from? And Graham's vocals pretty much the same. And I mean, there are just killer tunes like Krina Kuri and Too Drunk to Die, Too Young to Die, or Too Drunk to Live, whatever that song is called. General Hospital, Bigfoot, Star Car Lane. The album is just a rockin' album. I love it. And in terms of Graham Bonnet's performance, awesome. Of course, it was kind of just a launching pad for Yngwie, and then he moved on. So let's talk about number 2. Speaking of Yngwie moving on, the number 2 album on my list is also from Alcatraz, but this time it features a guitar player by the name of Steve Vai. Maybe you've heard of him. And this album is a forgotten gem. In my mind, this is a better album, and it's better for a couple reasons. Steve is just a much more multi-dimensional player and writer than Yngwie was. And this album is really not like typical metal hard rock albums of the mid 80s. I mean, it's really out there. I mean, in a good way. I mean, there are songs and sounds on this album that were totally unique in terms of production, the way the vocals are done, Steve's guitar work. I mean, it's crazy. And to be honest, some of the songs don't really work for me. They're kind of weird, but super creative and just unlike anything else at the time. And it's kind of sad that this band never really took off or got the notoriety they needed, because talent-wise and all the elements were there with Steve Vai in place, who was a much easier to work with. And Graham Bonnet always talks about how much he loved working with Steve Vai and how the two clicked so well. And it would have been cool if they could have done some more. But then a guy named David Lee Roth came knocking, and you know, how could Steve Vai turn that down? So who knows what would have happened if Vai would have never left for David Lee Roth? We might have seen another Alcatraz album with Steve Vai and Graham Bonnet. But it's a great album, great vocals. One of my favorite Alcatraz songs, one of my favorite Graham Bonnet songs is Skyfire. And you hear the transfer in one song, you hear the transformation of Graham Bonnet going from Phil Everly to Blowtorch, you know, in a verse. I mean, and it just shows the range, the magnitude of his voice. It's unbelievable. If you've never heard Disturbing the Peace, go find a copy of it. It's on Spotify. Go listen to it. Unbelievable album. What about number one? What's my number one Graham Bonnet album? Well, it's this one. Assault Attack from the Michael Schenker Group, circa 1982. And this, of course, features Michael Schenker, one of my all-time favorite guitar players, also known to be kind of volatile. Here's the deal. I think he's crazy, but he's awesome, a great player, and he and Graham put together a great album. I won't get into the whole story of how Graham lost this gig, but it involves indecent exposure. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. So they did this album, did a short tour before Graham was fired, and man, this is one, not just the best Graham Bonnet album, but one of my favorite albums. It's in my top 5 of all time albums. Desert Song, great song. Samurai, Assault Attack, Dancer, some of the weirdest lyrics you'll ever hear. Cheesy lyrics, but just a really cool song. Great guitar playing by Michael Schenker. It's a great band. Ted McKenna plays drums on it, but Cozy Powell was actually on the tour. And of course, Graham knew Cozy from Rainbow, and of course, Cozy played on his lineup solo album. So Graham Bonnet and Cozy Powell were good friends, worked together a lot. But it's just a really good album. If you're going to own one Schenker album and one Graham Bonnet album, if you can only own one of each, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is the album. Michael Schenker Group, Assault Attack from 1982. All right, so there you have it. Top 5 albums featuring Graham Bonnet. Number 5 was his solo album Lineup from 1981. Number 4 was Down to Earth from Rainbow, 1979. Number 3, No Parole from Rock and Roll from Alcatraz, 1984. Number 2, Disturbing the Peace from Alcatraz, 1985. And coming in at number 1 from 1982, Michael Schenker Group's Assault Attack. What do you think? Agree? Disagree? Let me hear about it in the comments. Thanks for watching. And if you haven't subscribed, please take a minute and do so. Click that like button. We'll see you on the next Classic Guitar Rock. Bye-bye.